Alright, how's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about Udon, the Udon part of Act 2 of Wano, because honestly, I've been rewatching Wano Act 2 there recently, and it is fantastic. Well, I've been rewatching Act 1 and 2, I've been watching all of Wano, but I'm just finished Act 2 now. About to start Act 3, but I'm not going to talk about that just yet. I want to talk about Udon, because most of the complaints I see about Wano are about Udon, saying, oh, how slow it was and all that, but it's actually so good. I'm like... Obviously, the week-to-week stuff probably wasn't great. I can see why people didn't like it week-to-week, because it's a lot of, like, constantly kind of leaving it on the good parts, and then you go back, and then you keep going. But it's like, if you're watching it as a whole, it's fantastic. It's like a proper DBZ training arc for Luffy, and it's really cool. And on top of that, we get to see more of what Mihawk talked about in Marineford, more of his ability to connect people, to the extent where they're comparing him to Odin, and he's kind of, and he gives respect, he gives good respect. He's like, yeah, bro, Odin was a great man, but like, we've got to beat Kaido now. We have to do it now. And it's to the point where, like, you can see the scabbards, they start to respect Luffy a lot more, because they're like, yeah, I love this guy. Look at the energy he's got for him. And I have to say, we'll talk about it more in detail. I'm just gonna go over it slightly here because I'm really excited. I've had such a great week just watching through the beginning of Wano. It's been such an amazing week, and there's so many different things that just floated through my mind when I was watching it. So we're gonna just talk about Udon because I loved it. I loved it so much. Let's start with Hyogoro, because I want to just go on about him for a bit. Right, Hyogoro is fantastic. I know he's a very minor character, but he was just great, man. He showed off Luffy's kindness, but also he showed off the strength of the Wano people. How, like, their strength is still there. When they have spirit, their strength is still there. And it shows Oda's care. Like, Oda loves to have strong, older characters, and that's what I love. I love that about Oda, the way he treats his elderly characters. And I must say, Hyogoro was fantastic. Just kind of his whole vibe and being like the Master Roshi to Luffy's Goku in a much cooler way than Master Roshi, I might add. His design is also really cool, looking back on it. And he's just really, really cool, and how he teaches Luffy and how he just gets along with him. And he's the first person the first samurai Luffy kind of wins over besides the scabbards, and it's really cool to see, especially because he's a fucking Yakuza boss, man. Luffy's got the mafia on his side. My man, bro. My man, Luffy. Respect. You know what I mean? And it's been really, really cool to see, just in general. And we get to see Luffy training, trying to learn this new hockey technique, Ryo, and it's like him just constantly attacking people, and it's like a mini tournament arc, to be honest. Now, I will say they're not very important characters he's fighting, but it's still fun to see in his interactions with Hyogoro and Kawamatsu's comments, just being Luffy's hype man, basically. That's what Hyogoro and Kawamatsu are doing, and it's just really, really cool to see. And it's all sandwiched in between an amazing Yasue B plot and a not so amazing Big Mom C plot, but you know what? The two other plots, the A and B plot, are so good. It kind of makes up for the sort of lackluster C plot. And I will say, when he gets into Udon for the first time, and he's just like, his interactions with Kid, they are hilarious. They are great. They're great character building for Kid, and just in general make him such a more empathetic character. And even I got to the point there yesterday where Killer and Kid are captured again. And just seeing Kid's reaction to it really makes you empathize with him, because we don't know much about Kid even now. So that small scene makes you really think about his past and really understand why he's so important. Because he cares for Killer almost as much as Luffy cares for any of his crewmates, on such a deep level, if not more than Luffy cares for any of his crewmates. So it's really, really interesting to see where Kid's character will go after Wano, especially after seeing that. And I will say, right, I will make a separate video on them at some point. But after rewatching Wano, I really do like the scabbards quite a lot, especially Kawamatsu, Ashura Doji, Kinemon, and the like. But I'll talk about that in further detail later on. And Yasue, of course. Yasue is fantastic. But yeah. It is just... like, Udon is just underrated as all hell, because it's literally just a Dragon Ball Z training arc in One Piece with Oda's own flair and a bit of lore dropped in there, on top of being Odin's hype man yet again. That's really what Wano, the first 2 acts of Wano do, is they hype up Odin for us to get to see him in the Act 3 flashback. And it works so well because everyone's just hyping him up. Everywhere you go, all the prisoners are talking about Odin. And then it's just, it's so good. And then that final scene in Udon when Luffy like takes all the prisoners and is like, stop, and throws them to the other part of the building and makes a speech and he's like, your spirit, like all about how your spirits are broken and we can still beat Kaido. It's been 20 years in the making and we're here to beat him. And just seeing him lined up with the scabbards, it's just so cool. And Luffy's whole speech and bravado, it's just Luffy. It's all Luffy, man. And it's the first territory he actually picks up. He's like, Udon is my territory, man. And it's just so good to see. And like, personally, I didn't really think Act 1 and 2 were great when I was watching it for the first time, because I just wanted to catch up. I was like rushing, trying to catch up. But this time I got to sit and enjoy it. And it was fucking amazing. I think Oda gets better with every single arc. You know what I mean? Like, Whole Cake and Wano are the best New World arcs in my opinion, and it just shows how much of a skilled writer Oda is. And you could even say, if you really wanted to, you've got individual arcs within the arc. You've got the Udon, you've got the Yasue. You know, I know they're all subplots of the greater Wano story, and you've even got the Odin flashback, which is basically an arc into its own right. And they're so good. And I think the combination of the Udon and the Yasue flashback is just not the Yasue flashback, the Yasue B-plot is amazing. And just Udon in general, really. We learn, it increases on hockey and teaching us about hockey, and actually pretty decently foreshadows the, like, you know, fucking Kaido and Advanced Conquerors, because even after Luffy learns about Rio and learns how to do it, he still says something's missing. He still thinks something is missing, and he still thinks Kaido's attack was still stronger, implying Advanced Conquerors. So it makes sense where he gets to in chapter 10. So, do you know what I mean? It's just, and the build-up, and you really think people were going around saying, the Rio was too rushed, Advanced Conquerors was too rushed. No, Oda spent like a good portion of Act 2 basically setting that up. And quick side note, I do think Carabo is like going to join like the samurai. I think he's staying on Wano, because Raizo's taking a real liking to him in Act 2. I honestly think he might stay on Wano. He might become one of the new Akazaya 10 or some shit. I don't know. He might become one of Momo's retainers. I have no idea. Or he might become one of the new Shogun Owanshu or something, and he'll be like Ninja Carabo. I can't do ninja actions, but you get what I mean, right? There's a load of cool setup and like different ways for the story to go with this, and I'm just loving it. I really am. I think Wano, I don't want to say Wano's the best arc in the series, or not in the series, sorry, but because I definitely don't want to say it's the best arc in the series, because I feel like that's disingenuous, because Wano is definitely top tier, definitely in that S tier category. But with saying that without giving the other arcs the proper time of day and talking about them in detail and giving them a rewatch to the same extent, I don't think would be fair. Because although Oda definitely does get better as a writer as he goes along, there are certain high peaks where they're shorter and they're more concise, but they are really, really, really well written to probably the same caliber as Wano. But Wano gets an extra boost because it's so long and it's so consistent. Do you know what I mean? So I can't say anything about Wano being the best arc yet, because even for one, it's not finished. But I will also say one quick thing. I'm not going to make a video on this. I was going to earlier on in the week. But the Kaido defeat works. It really does. If you rewatch Wano, it works. Luffy is constantly mentioning how he's going to make sure people can eat whatever they want. Actually, he reiterates in his big speech about broken spirits and about beating Kaido that he promised his friend he would make it a world where everyone can eat what they want, you know? So it makes perfect sense. If Kaido gets up, yeah, it also makes sense. But Udon especially, and actually because at some point in the arc when everyone's getting poisoned by Queen's little poison going pew pew pew, right? They grab Luffy and they basically say, what's the point in living? Even if we do escape, our families are dead and we have nothing to eat. And you see Luffy's look on his face. So it's a food is a very important topic in Wano, and it's been reiterated over and over again in both the acts. So not only did Udon was a fantastic arc on its own, being basically a Dragon Ball Z training arc for Luffy, because we don't get to see him train at all. Gear 2 and Gear 3 were all done off screen. Same with Gear 4. We got a slight flashback afterwards, but it wasn't really that in depth. But it was great to get him to actually see him training and to see a mentor in action. And it was just... And also we got Rayleigh flashbacks, which I'm never going to complain about, boys. Silver's Rayleigh, the Dark King, my guy. I love Rayleigh. I could talk about Rayleigh for hours, but we'll save that for another video. Do you know what I mean? So it was just really cool. And on top of that, Queen in the early parts of Wano was so funny. Oh, it's like his little sing song where he's like, Zuma 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 Zuma. You know, that shit is great, man. It really gives character to like the Beast Pirates, and that's one thing the anime particularly is very good at. Probably with the voices and the music really helps with that. But it was good to see Queen get a bit of character, especially if you know what's going to happen to him later on in the arc and who he fights. It's good to see, and I'm really looking forward to this year. Also, really quick, I just want to talk about a really cool moment that happens at the start of Udon when like Luffy's got all the bandages on and stuff. That look, man, that look of like pure badassery is just, that's something else. Like this arc, I love Luffy, right? He's probably my favorite protagonist in general, right? He's just such an individual is the best way to put it. He's just such a character. He really makes One Piece what it is for more than anything else. And I think this arc allowed us to see more into his like thought process, into how he figures out powers and just generally, and we get to see him use his abilities more and get mastery of his different abilities, which he uses later on in the fight against Kaido, which is so great, and it foreshadows a bunch of things, and it just shows his pull with the people, which works a lot when you think about what happens in like 1046. So I really enjoyed Udon, and I think if you haven't already, make sure you give not only Udon, but also the entire of Wano a rewatch, and hell, maybe even the entire series, because there are certain arcs you may underrate heavily, because they are fantastic on a rewatch. Because a lot of the time when you're catching up to One Piece, Wano is that big, huge pillar. Everyone's like, I gotta get past Wano, I gotta catch up to the good stuff, right? But Wano is amazing, especially the early parts of it, and even Act 3. Act 3 on its own is probably a top arc, right? It's a fantastic story, and with the two combined, man, by the end of this you could say it's the best arc, but I don't know. But I think everyone underrates it because you're rushing to get into the up-to-date stuff so you can get involved with the discussion. At least that's what I was like, because at the time when I caught up, we were getting to chapter 1000, so I was like, I need to catch up before chapter 1000 comes out. So I didn't, this is going to sound corny, but I didn't take my time to like smell the roses that was the first two acts of Wano. And honestly, on the rewatch, I've really enjoyed it. And I must say, if you personally didn't like Act 1 and 2 very much on the weekly read, please go back and give it a rewatch or give it a reread or whatever. I'd recommend a rewatch. I know a lot of people are giving out about pacing in the Wano arc, but honestly, if you binge it, you don't notice. And I've always thought about that with the anime for the most part. The only two arcs where I noticed a bit of pacing issues was Thriller Bark, oddly enough, and obviously the Foxy arc, but you can just skip the Foxy arc. Fuck that. Jokes. It was only Thriller Bark and Dressrosa. Even with Dressrosa, it wasn't too bad. It was mainly just Thriller Bark. But everything else, if you're watching it, if you're skipping the recaps and you're watching it in like big chunks. I'd say chunks of 5 if you don't have the time to watch a lot. Chunks of 5 is the best way to get the most material, and it's great. I will say the anime is very undersold by many people, but definitely give it a shot. all throughout it's very good. And the Japanese version is one of the best voice casts, the best voice cast in my opinion ever. And not to say the dub's not good, because the dub is great after a certain point. I think it gets good around Alabasta. They take a while getting going, but once you get to Alabasta roughly, it gets pretty good. So both versions are very good. So definitely give them a rewatch or give them a watch if you haven't. And I'll tell you, we'll talk about Wano more in detail in the coming weeks. But if anything else, I'm glad I got through it, because it was so good. It's been a great week rewatching Wano, honestly. And the characters, man, I could talk about the characters for days, but we won't be doing that today. With that being said, tell me what you guys thought about Act 1 and 2 of Wano, if you did give it a rewatch, or even your first impressions of it. Because I really enjoyed it myself, so I'd love to see what you guys thought. And with that being said, like and subscribe for more One Piece content from me, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye!